Good people, welcome to another episode of Financial Freedom. I am Derek Brown, your host and accompaniment on this journey. Trust me, we've been learning a lot in 2019, 2020, and now here we are in 2021. This episode is going to be focused on New Year, new career success. And I have a great guest for you. But first, I want to thank you. It's because of your views and because of your stability with following at the Hope TV that we actually grew from one show to over 30 shows with 10 million views to over 45 million views. Without you, it couldn't have happened. So let me just say thank you so much for following. You're awesome. Nobody like you. With that being said, we have an awesome guest today. We have Sylvia Neely David, MBA. She is incredible. We have the blessing of having wonderful guests on the show that really I can't even take any credit for it. My team has been great getting wonderful, overqualified guests to come talk to me. So, with that being said, she has a BS from Albany State University, a MBA or EMBA from the University of Georgia, over 25 years of experience. She's a thought leader. She does business consulting and human capital management. She has led design, development, and delivery of multidimensional, cross-functional solutions to clients. That was a lot I just said right there, in case you just missed it. She is incredible. In her spare time, when she's not busy conquering the world, she is also chair of the National Minority Supplier Development Council, chair of the Community Committee on Small Business Advisory Council. She's a conference speaker. She's a mentor for other women through the Pathways Achievia program. She is phenomenal, and she's here with me right now. Ladies and gentlemen, Sylvia Neely David, MBA.
Hi, Derek. Thank you so much for having me.
You are more than welcome. Thank you for your time. I literally don't deserve it. So thank you so much. Look, 2020 was a crazy year. And so we want to start off this year giving people inspiration, but some information on 2021. When I look at what you've done and all the experience you have an incredible skill set of leveraging and managing the power of human capital, which I think is incredibly important coming into the year. So let's start off with this kind of question. People realized a lot of instability with their jobs last year, their careers, their finances. From a woman like yourself who speaks on success, how can we kind of recalibrate for 2021? What should my thought process be for stabilizing myself in my career moving forward?
Well, it is an uncertain time for some, and it's actually a great opportunity for others.
Right.
At the same time that businesses are laying off and changing roles, there's also a large number of organizations that are revving up and they're hiring. So it's a very unique time for your listeners and viewers. What I would say is start to understand who's hiring and who's not. What are those industries out there that's gearing up quite a bit of the hiring? I can tell you a couple off the cuff is healthcare. Healthcare is hiring. Technology is hiring. Anyone who knows anything about ERP implementations or cloud implementations, those folks are hot right now. So I would say go out and find out who's hiring and try to position yourself, your skills, your background in some of those areas, so that you can be a little more about, your employment opportunities. Another, believe it or not, where we're seeing a lot of growth is independent consulting. Because a lot of organizations, they're they may not be willing to hire right now, possibly,
Mm,
but they are willing to bring on really good talent. And
mm,
so, if you're talented in certain areas, find out those organizations who's willing to come on and hire 6 month, even a 9 month contract,
mm.
which can offer some degree of stability. And I think you have to look at stability a little differently in times like 2020 and possibly 2021,
Okay.
because there's going to be any such thing as a quote unquote permanent job that doesn't
Mm.
exist anymore. So you
No,
have to look at stabilizing your employment to some degree, but it may look more like, what we call a gig, which might last six
got
months
you.
to 9 months a year.
Right. So redefining stability. What is what? How would you redefine stability? Like that's so crazy. I never thought that I would have to redefine stability when it comes to the job market. Because typically, when you think of stability, you think of a regular check, benefits. You think of um, job security, basically. And from what I hear, what you're saying, it's not necessarily being at the same job on a regular basis, but having work, consistent work, and skills to apply. How would you define stability?
You're exactly. Stability is elusive. It is trying to have consistent income. Consistent income might look like, for some, a job that you've been on and you were able to sustain.
Okay.
It might look like, for others, having a series of independent gigs that are back to back to back.
Hmm.
So it looks different for different people. If you're looking for quote unquote, regular full time or what used to be called permanent work, it can still be found. You just have to make sure that you're aligned to the industries that are hiring.
Right.
However, you also
Okay.
need to understand that, you know, companies are trying to make a profit. And
Mm,
sometimes, they're performing at the level they used to perform. So therefore, it's impossible
mm,
to keep all those employees employed because they're just simply making the amount of money they used to make to be able to sustain it. So there's a great
mm.
likelihood you could be laid off. But what you want to strive for is consistent work, whether it is payroll or it is in a 1099 type of format. You also
Okay.
want to focus on saving some of the money because you may have a savings vehicle with your job. You can continue to put away money in your 401k and 403b or IRAs, which is great.
Right.
But you might end up in a situation where you're working gigs where you're getting all of your money and you have to
Mm,
pay your own taxes, and you
right.
also have to create a vehicle to save some of that money as well.
Got you. Got you. Now I've definitely been a contractor before, just working in different avenues of mental health. Here's my question. When listening to what you're saying, you're sounding like the people who are less risk averse are the ones who may be more likely to get more stability. Being willing to take that risk of being a contractor, being someone who's willing to step outside those traditional lines of employment, the risk or the benefit to that risk may be greater as far as income stability. Um, if if you listen to a lot of the rhetoric we have going on today, it's a lot about grind, grind, grind. There's no rest for the weary. You're always grinding. Where is this kind of balance between I'm willing to take this risk to be a contractor, to be a consultant, and also this idea of stability where you talk about make sure you're saving money, make sure you do it in a certain kind of way. You mentioned aligning yourself with certain industries. Does my idea of stability vary depending on my industry? And if it does, how much risk should I be willing to take? Does that also vary depending on the industry? Is there a general guideline that you would recommend if I'm willing to take more risk? How should I determine that?
So yes, your stability is going to be determined by the industry you're working in and the type of role that you have. Um, like I said, industries like IT, even HR is in demand because companies are needing sources more than ever to guide them through this tumultuous time. But risk is very personal. Risk is personal. It's going to depend on how much risk you're willing to take on. So if you're in a situation where you have a full-time regular position and you are still making income, even though your income may have been reduced, because some organizations are asking you to take a 10% cut or a 15 or 20% cut in your salary. If you have
Okay.
consistent work in a regular full-time job, I would say continue to do that, and even with the cut of pay, continue to try to save.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you're in a situation where you have been laid off, and I'm actually mentoring people in companies who've been laid off, such as Delta, to help. So you're in a situation where you've been laid off, and the only opportunities you're finding are opportunities that are contract in nature
Mm-hmm.
or gager. I would take those. And
Mm-hmm.
for the someone who is waiting unemployment versus some employment, then
Right.
that's a better place to be, is to have some employment. So
Okay.
yes, the more risk you're willing to take on, the better. But if you're comparing no income to some income, then it's not a lot of risk. It's just you need to make the decision to gig and have some income and be
Right.
able to weather this storm until the markets settle down, the job market down, and companies begin to get back to where they were.
Got you. Got you. Got you. Let me ask you this. Coming from the standpoint of of a woman who has been in so many different positions of power. You've done a lot of speaking. You've done different positions. You've been here for 25 years. You've done some incredible things over your time. When it comes to the people who I know for me, and this is always a question for me, and I have a hard time doing this. I'm an introvert by nature, but it seems as though a lot of people, when it comes to contracts, when it comes to getting new gigs, as you put it, when it comes to getting a job, it's a lot about who you know, and who you don't know can hurt you as well. But when we're so connected now, we're almost we're not connected, but we're connected. We're touching, but we're not touching. Social media has done so much of that for us that it's weird. Um, you do I just keep on having this theme run through my head of you understanding how human capital works. And when it comes to choosing those kind of circles that we want to run in that may give us those new gigs, what strategies have you seen people use to be more successful? I mean, I would hope not brown nosing, of course, but I'm sure that happens. But other than that, how have you seen people kind of leverage their networks to get those gigs, to get those contracts?
So you have to have a strategy if you're looking for work. It's just like becoming employed. You have to sit
Mm-hmm.
down and have a strategy around what professional networks are out there in your industry. Where do your colleagues spend their time, both professionally and personally? And
Mm-hmm.
you have to create a plan to do that. But if you would ask me, I don't think I was quite as medical. Um, I was raised in an environment where my father used to say, go make friends. And he started to tell us that at a very young age. And the reason
Right.
why he said make friends is you don't know what you'll need, and it's hard to say no to a friend. And he was exactly
True.
right. So
True.
I took the approach where I just go make friends. And sometimes that's in a professional network, like a SHRM for human resource folks, or like National Black MBA Association
Mm-hmm.
for MBAs or things like that. So those are, but also, sometimes there's golf for women that's fun, and you want to just go hang out with a lot of professional women and play golf. But it's an opportunity for you to meet professional people and let them get to know you and tell them
Gotcha.
who you are and what you're trying to do and where you came and what you like. Spend the time to just get to know people. I agree with you.
Hmm.
Brown nosing happens. But for my personality, that wasn't an option. I don't do well with
Right.
that. So I had to make myself be more of an extrovert. I had to go
Okay.
through a process because I was very much an introvert. And over time, I mean, since childhood, and over
Hmm.
time, I had to work at being comfortable
Right.
with walking up to a person and saying, hi, my name is Sylvia. What's your name? Just that simple.
Got you.
And in the past, I mean, I went out and do something like that. But I had to
Hmm.
learn how to do that. And once you just decide that you're going to meet people and make your life richer, you always inevitably people who will need work or who will need your services or who might be
Hmm.
hiring, if that makes sense. And so
Got you.
what people first start out by saying is, oh, I met this girl named Sylvia and you'll like her, and oh, by the way, she has to do these things. And so that's what people don't realize. It's like, it's not always that they lead with, she's good at human capital or she's good at transformations like that. A lot of times they lead with, oh, she's just good people. I think you should meet her. I think she can help you. And so that's
Right.
why I think the attitude should be, let me just go out and meet great people in my personal life, in my professional life, and some of that will be in formal networks and some of them will be in influence.
And that's actually a great reminder. We actually reviewed a book called Click, um, by a gentleman named George Fraser, and he talks about the idea. And I actually met George Fraser at the downtown Marriott at a business summit. And one thing that he says in that book is that people are much more likely, and you literally just reminded me of this. People are much more likely to do business with people they like, juxtaposed to people they don't know, and they have to maybe some cold calling somewhere. But if they get a referral, like someone like yourself, and they say, "Look, man, she's great people. Oh, and she also does A, B, C, D, E, and F," they're much more likely to call you just off the strength of word of mouth. And that's a great point. That is also a great point. I totally did not think about that for a second.
You're
So with that
exactly
being said,
right. And sometimes it doesn't happen overnight, it takes
hmm.
time. And it's not one of those things where, Friday afternoon, you're going to go to a networking event and someone's going to call you next week. That's probably not going to happen. So
Right.
it's about fostering those long term friendships, relationships over time. If I'm honest with you, an
Hmm.
hour before sitting down with you, I got a call
Hmm.
from someone that I've done work
Oh,
with for years. I've known him in the community, and
okay.
he called me up and said, hey, I need your help. I spoke to him last year, but hadn't talked to him this year yet, and he calls me up for an opportunity. So I'm
Hmm.
sharing that with you to say it's keeping that long term relationship because a particular individual, I've had a long standing relationship with he and his wife. And
And
so,
that was literally
yes,
going
they
to be
know
my
what I,
next point, is how do you
yeah.
nurture those relationships? How do you keep them, you know, healthy? That was literally going to be my next question.
Well, I can give you a kind of trick that I use, but there's ways to do it.
Okay.
I started out many years ago by having a weekly call because I have always had jobs that were so busy and there was so much going on at work. What I was doing is finding myself unable to connect with folks like I want to. So what I would
Okay.
do is on a day, I would try to keep my schedule light. And on Fridays, I would have a call list of people that I literally call up their phone and say, hi, this is Sylvia. How are things going? I'm trying to catch up with you. I know it's been a while. let's connect when you have a moment back. And sometimes I call and ask them. And I just do that. And people who know me know I do that. So I call you up and I kind of check in. Hey, what's going on? You haven't talked to you in a little while. Well,
Mm-hmm.
that fosters relationships.
Right.
Let's
Right.
get together. Let's have coffee. You have to actively manage those relationships, and you can't manage them expecting that job, gig. You have to manage them because you really like those folks and enjoy them. And
That's
if
the
you
key is
feel your
really liking
network,
people. I appreciate that.
exactly. So if you feel your network that way, then when you're doing the weekly calls, you're excited to catch up with them. You're saying, "Hey, haven't talked to you in a while. What's going on? Me back. When can we get together?" And you continue to foster those relationships in good times, bad times, and inevitably you will be where you're getting called.
Got you. I like that because when I think of those relationships, sometimes it almost seems a little scary because you wonder, I don't want to mess this up. This is a good person, maybe a good contact one day. I don't want to screw up this relationship with saying something stupid on the phone. But you're right. If you
Mhm.
genuinely like these people as human beings, it becomes that much easier to talk to them in the future. And you may not do any work with them. I think you mentioning, "Hey, I'm not talking to you for work. I'm talking to you because I like you as a person," does a lot to create that sense of authenticity in that relationship. So thank you for that. Thank you a lot. I wanted to ask you this because you just brought this up, and I don't want to miss the opportunity to ask you about it. You said someone called you with a potential opportunity. And it dawns on me that sometimes as we continue to make these things happen and put some of these good principles to play, that some opportunities may arise for us that may or may not be good for us moving forward, or maybe just painfully uncomfortable. When we have an opportunity come our way, right? And let's say it just makes us just super nervous or super uncomfortable, or it may be outside of our normal space of where we operate in. Um, in this year, we're trying to do bigger things, step outside of our comfort zone. How would you suggest people may evaluate that to say, okay, this opportunity came to me, I've been networking, I got good people in my circle, but I'm not sure if I want to take this opportunity or not. Like if it's outside the box, it might be good for me, but it might not. How do we evaluate our own discomfort with this opportunity that's coming?
Okay. I would say don't evaluate your discomfort as you go forward because in order to be successful, you have to come to a place where you become comfortable being uncomfortable. There's
Mm,
going to be a little nervousness, no matter how much you know, no matter how good you are, there is a possibility that there could be a little nervousness. But don't allow
mm-hmm,
that to drive whether you take the opportunity. I think the major driver should be how much of what I'm being asked to do that I'm really comfortable doing, that I know that I can do. Because there is always a small percentage of any job, any opportunity where you may not be as knowledgeable, and that's an opportunity for you to grow. So I'm not saying don't take it. You just need to know how much of this I know that I can do, and that I know I can hit out of the ballpark. And then if it's a
mm-hmm.
few things, you know, you know what they are, and I think it's important for you to be honest about what those are. So if
Got you.
somebody calls you and it's someone in your network and it's someone you have a relationship with, you say, I am extremely doing A, B, C, and D that you asked me to do. I can take care of
Mm-hmm.
that, but I'm not quite as up to date on that last item.
Okay.
And while I can facilitate it and I can do it, I just want to be honest with you that that is not 100 within my. I want to take this opportunity to grow it if you have that time, but I just want to be honest with you. Most of the time, they're going to say, that's fine, or we can augment that with someone else, or I'm confident you can and you're allowed to go forward.
Hmm. That is that's actually good advice. I would have thought about I've thought about that, I wondered about that before. So let me ask this as a follow-up question. Let's say you get into a gig or a contract or an employment situation with someone, and you have to end it. How do you avoid, especially if it's a personal contact with someone that you like, but you're saying, you know what, this is bigger than I thought it was. I'm not going to be able to do this the way that with the excellence that I thought I could. How do you step out of that position or that contract without damaging the relationship with this contact that you've built?
It's important that you maintain the relationship if you possibly can, because
Mm,
the world is small, and um, I travel all the way over the country, and I still run into people who know someone in my back door. So it's a
not
very,
the back
very small
door.
world, and it is definitely it, in your back door, literally. And
That's
it's
cool.
definitely a small world in your particular industry that smaller that you maintain your relationships.
Mhm.
My advice is always going to be people direct honestly. So I would go to that contact and say, I am, most people know me pretty well. They know I like to do things with excellence. And if I can't do that, I'm not happy with it. And so I would
Exactly.
go to him and say, Bob, you know how I am. I want to do this with excellence. I want you to be seen in a great light by your board or whomever. And I am not satisfied with kind of the direction it's going in. And here's attention, or I'm moving into a place where I'm not comfortable the solution you want me to deliver. And that just have
Right.
that conversation. And I would also have in my back pocket someone
Hmm.
else that I know that I can either bring on, or someone that I can recommend, and agree to work alongside to make sure that you right size this thing and get that contact the right kind of solution and services that they actually ask for. There is a way to
Yeah.
salvage it,
Hmm.
but you do
Hmm.
have to go back to that contact, and you do have to be honest about where that you can bring to bear the solution that you promise. And you do need to have a recommendation or a solution around how you get him or her what they.
Got you. So you're taking the initiative to be able to say, hey, I may not be able to present you the solution, but here's someone or something that may be able to present that solution for you, even though it may not be me personally.
Exactly. You are facilitating the solution. You are making sure that at the end of the day that you make him or her whole. You don't want to leave
Mhm.
them out in a lurch where they still have to go back to zero and start over trying to find this solution that they need. So at least be a
Mhm.
conduit for that and bring someone in, and also agree at no cost to facilitate that
Mhm.
transition so that it's
Okay.
smooth, so that that friend or colleague can go forth and be successful. Again, make sure you are nurturing that relationship and leaving it intact.
Got you. That is real good advice. For some reason in my brain, I heard people scream at me, "I don't do nothing for free." Well, look, if you can't provide the solution, you may want to help this person at least transition into a space where they can get the solution. So thank you so much for that. I want to ask this because it's been difficult for a lot of people. Like you said, some people did excellent in 2020. They made more money. It was a great time for them. Other people, it was very difficult. In handling change, risk and change, I guess, is for our conversation. In handling and embracing
Yes.
change, what were some traits or what are some thoughts on embracing change that you believe made other people successful and other people not so successful?
Change is always personal. Whether your company is changing or whether you're having to go through a change to get the other side, of a situation. It's always personal. And things that come up when we're teaching change management to make people get on board is we start about the with them, what's in it. And what you have to decide when change comes to you is what's in it for you. How will you be impacted right now? How are you going to be impacted on the other side? And part of what you have to decide is, I want to be in a better position on the other side. And yes, there's probably going to be some discomfort as I go from now through this change. But on the other side of the change, life is going to be better. And the people who have been most successful with change last year and probably this year is going to be interesting are those folks who said, while I might not be as comfortable, I want to get to a better situation, and where I am now is not acceptable. And so I would rather get on the other side because I cannot stay in the situation I'm in. So it depends on how dire your situation is. And you're right, risk, it depends on how comfortable you are with risk. And if you are completely averse, it will control your degree of success sometimes. Because you put yourself in a box where you are limiting yourself. You have to be careful about that. So you do have to be able to take on some risk and be willing to do something that you haven't done before, especially when you start talking about financial situations where, you're going to be without work or you're going to be unemployed. It would be most helpful if you can get your mind around, I'm going to have to take this risk and I'm going to have to get out of this situation and do something different to get on the other side. And that might mean this becomes tangible and not, that might mean that you take a job that you've done before and maybe at one time you were a director and you might slip back to a level just to get through a year like 2020.
Right.
So it means doing some different things because you're looking at what the future brings, not necessarily where you are now, and you're trying to bridge the gap, have some degree of income, keep your career intact because you also want to stay in a situation where you can still manage your career. But you're going to have to take some risk. People who do not take risk often find themselves dissatisfied with their level of success. So you have to re-examine yourself. It's a personal conversation around the amount of risk I'm willing to take in order to get out of a really delicate situation and get on the side of it.
Got you. I want to ask you two more real questions. I think we're running low on time, and I don't want to get in trouble here. But I got two more questions, and one of them actually came from a friend of mine. I really appreciate her conversation. But one of the questions was for aspiring professionals who are working with someone, perhaps older, perhaps younger, who does not really like change, who doesn't like to take risks, but they're in a power over them. But the other person underneath them is not in a position, or they just don't want to leave that post. What advice would you give to that person that's working beneath someone who doesn't want to embrace change while they're in that post? What advice would you give to them navigating that space?
I would say you have to come to the realization that there's only going to be a certain amount of growth that you can have. And so while you're there, learn as much as you can learn, grow as much as you can grow, and then you got to chart your path where you're going to have to move from underneath that person, which might mean you apply for another job within that organization, or you look at organization because you're kind of, if I understand you correctly, kind of bound by someone else's inability to make any changes. That's going to be
Right.
very different. You're going to find yourself trying to convince that
Mm-hmm.
leader that
Right.
there's a compelling reason to make this change. There's a compelling reason to take this recommendation from me. Compelling reason why this can work in this station. You can all of your
Right.
time
Right. Exactly.
bumping up against a wall, and then you risk having that leader, look at you in a certain way that might not be favorable. So
Right.
I think what you is you do as much as you can there with the understanding that I know that I got to apply for type of opportunity in another organization that's going to allow me to have some freedom,
Mhm.
and it's going to be someone who's willing to take risks and who's going to be willing to allow me to take risks, because when you have a leader that fosters taking risks, it allows you to grow, not necessarily
Right. It
title
gives you more
and,
freedom.
and, and money and things
Right.
like that. But you learn so, and I think it also grows your confidence
Mm-hmm.
around what you
Mm-hmm.
can do. And I've had those kind of bosses that said, okay, Sylvia, I'm hearing you about, go do the research, come back and make a recommendation. And of course, I mean, yeah, I got energized and excited, and I went all the research and I came back with a recommendation. And even if they didn't take all of it, they took some of it. Well, that grows you,
Right.
believe it or not, in knowledge. It also
Okay.
grows you in your confidence. And that's what you want, the kind of boss that facilitate. And it's hard for you to grow if they are skip first, that you don't get a chance to do anything.
Right. Right. And that's a very, very real statement. And I really want to ask you about assessing the skills that you need to bring to that kind of workplace. I, I am going to ask you about that. So if I'm stuck under this leader who doesn't want to change, how do I assess what skills to bring to that workplace? Because he or she may not be embracing of my skills, or whether they or don't feel like they're threatened by me, or whatever the case might be, or because they don't really want to change the company, they don't want to lose any money, whatever it is. How do I assess the skills? What skills I should bring to that work environment? Because I can't bring my full arsenal because they're going to be adverse to it. How do I assess what skills to kind of bring to that environment?
Again, my advice is always, straightforward, be honest. So in
Mm,
your one-on-one, perfect time to do it is, sometimes doing performance appraisals and things like that. I would have an honest conversation around, I know interest in these areas, and I have some expertise and experience in these other areas, and I would like to bring those to bear. And we've had a conversations where I tried to suggest that, and I didn't get the feel that that was an option for me. So I'd like to talk a little bit more about how I can bring all of my skills and all of experience to bear that can be beneficial to not only this department but this division and this organization. And here's
mm,
and I would have that kind of written up a little more formal and not just talking off the head of bring
got
to
you.
the table, and have that at the time when you're talking about performance, because it's really
Mhm.
about performance and organization perform, your department, your division, so it helps you to grow. And so
Gotcha.
I think that's a conversation in the confines of that, employer employee relationship, where you get on the same page, and that's going to tell you whether you can bring all of it to that particular organization. And
Mm,
if you really walk away feeling like, I'm going to be able to bring all myself, so I definitely can't grow, then you have
gotcha.
to make a serious decision about what is your next destination. What are those organizations that up to grow? And you have to do the research. I mean, it's the Forbes list, but actually get out and talk to people and gain the on the ground intelligence around companies that are really flexible about allowing you to have those kinds of freedoms to grow.
So in a situation where you're able to talk to your leader or to whoever's evaluating you, you have the opportunity to also kind of evaluate them, to be able to say, well, if they respond to me in a certain kind of way in this environment, I may or may not be able to excel and grow here, but if not, I need to be aware of that and potentially look for someplace else to take my skills where I can be 100%. After I learn whatever I can learn from here, just go about my way to find someplace else where I can grow and give let them find whoever they want to find for this position.
Exactly. That really is it. And when you're having these conversations, you have to be very careful, not to accuse them of being risk averse, or not to
Okay.
say that you don't have a certain skill. What you have to do is say what happened. I have made recommendation in the past around that and the other, and this has been your response. And here's what I'm really trying to do, and here's
Mm,
what I have to bring. And so I'm that we can talk a little bit more about how I do that, because I think I can be very helpful to you
gotcha.
and this organization. And so if you have that good conversation, and you find out that they're not going to change, then there's no yourself. You might have to be there for a while, especially in a time like it is right now when there's uncertainty in the job. But as soon as you get the opportunity where there is an opportunity for you to move around, I think it would be good advice to do that.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Here's my last question. You've been doing this thing for 25 years. You've seen some incredibly successful people, I'm guessing, and some people not so successful. Have the traits for
Right.
successful people 10, 15 years ago remained the same at this current point in time? Are they still the same traits that create successful people, or have those traits changed? And if they change, what are they?
Actually, Derek, they haven't changed. The
Mm,
people that I know that have been most successful, it was around technical competencies. It is around those, and I don't like to call them this, but what is referred to as soft skills,
soft skills.
around
Oh,
general leadership. Yes.
mm,
People who are often able to lead other people, give of themselves,
mm,
um, train other people, live by certain values,
mm,
give of themselves and their resources and their network, who's easy to say, hey, I know that might be able to help you with that. Let me connect the two. Those
okay.
are the people who are most successful, people who conduct themselves as servants. You
Mm,
hear the concept servant leadership a lot.
yeah, you do.
It
You're
is
right.
real. If you go through your life being of service to people, how do I help you? How do I become a conduit? How do I encourage you?
Mm,
Regardless of what your technical competency might be, those are the people who rise to the top.
okay. Gotcha. That is good to know. That is really good to know because with everything changing the way that it has, technology, our society right now, COVID, everything, I I I definitely wonder if things are not the same as far as what makes people successful or not. But yeah, being able to serve, being
Regardless
able to,
of
go ahead.
regardless of these tumultuous times right now, and
Mhm,
there's a focus on you having to have certain skill sets. The truth of the matter is those soft skills are more important than anything.
mm,
I have a couple of courses I talk around about the top skills for senior leaders, and the top competencies for emerging leaders. And, at some time we can talk czar, but by and large, none of those skills are hard skills. They are things like emotional intelligence. And
right.
emotional intelligence has about, 8 components to it. But, it's knowing how to manage relationships and manage yourself. And those are the things that make you successful. It's having some degree of leadership skills. And leadership does not mean, I have command of a certain piece of knowledge, but it's around being able to inspire and encourage and have people follow you.
Hmm.
So there's some core soft skills that have been consistent for the last 25, 30 years, and those are the folks that make it top of any organization. I don't care where they are. I don't care if they can be volunteer. They rise to the top,
Got you.
and
Okay.
and so you really have to go work on those soft skills.
Mm. Thank you for that. That's so good to know because you just think that everything changes. I mean, overnight, you seem like you see people have overnight success, and it's not overnight. They just may know how to manage those soft skills to be able to draw the right people. I think that means so much. That means so much.
You're
Okay, so
you're exactly right.
before we get too late, I don't want people getting mad at me. Where do we find you, Miss David?
Oh, I am located mostly on and under Sylvia Neely David MBA, and anything you can. It's my contact information on my LinkedIn, so it allows to contact me directly,
Hmm.
and I'm available. I'm happy to talk to you and uh, help you in any way that I can, because my life has been prosperous helping other people, and other people have helped me, so I can help you well.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Thank you for that so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your knowledge. It is so appreciated. Um, Ladies and gentlemen, Sylvia Neely David, MBA. She has been with us, and it's been a pleasure. Look, y'all, this is going to be a journey for the rest of 2021. We're going to have more incredible people like herself. Be sure you tune in to Financial Freedom. I have been your host, Derek Brown, and trust me, I'm learning just like you're learning right now. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in, and as always, be safe and be well out there.